I think Britain is just about the best city in the world to eat in right now, in terms of mid-range diversity. So, you know, if you want to eat gastronomic French food, it's best to go to Paris. If you want for purist cooking, probably Tokyo, Kyoto. But in terms of diversity mid-range, London, New York is also one of the other cities up there. And I think there's a lot of people maybe that are coming over to the Olympics that have not been to London, Britain, and particularly London, because that's where the Olympics is based, for 20 years. And still have that stigma, you know, the Jacques Chirac comment. Well, if you've really been over to London and tried some of the restaurants, it's not just the restaurants. I mean, you've got the restaurants, you've got some great street food. Go to Brick Lane and have a bagel, a salt beef bagel. The amount of food shops walk down Marylebone High Street, or go to, I know Borough Market's become very sort of quite touristy and busy, but just go and look there. There's so much stuff happening in food. And I think the other thing with Britain, which is unlike just about any other country in Europe, is that maybe because we didn't have a strong, or we lost our regionalistic food culture and our food tradition hasn't been really, it's being rediscovered now. We were much more open-minded to cultures from around the world. So, you know, you can get, I think I was saying to somebody earlier, they've got one of the sort of most authentic and only authentic Sichuan province restaurants outside of Sichuan province. And there's just one example. You look at what's happened to British curry, Indian food. You know, it used to be 10 years ago, 5 years ago, people go, oh, it's not authentic. No, it's not. It is authentic, but it's British curry. And the curry, there's lots of the dishes here don't exist in India. They don't exist at all. But what's happened is the identity of that, there's 10, 11,000 Bangladeshi-run Indian restaurants in Britain alone now, which was a couple of years ago, probably more. And so some of these dishes that have become well-known, well-covered, have now been exported to India. So you can go to restaurants in India, in Delhi, and find British curry dishes on the menu. So it is authentic because it's got its own identity. So I think it's the sheer diversity. You've got restaurants like, if you take somewhere like Rocker or Zuma, you know, what Ryan has done in terms of a kind of westernising Japanese cooking, in sort of westernising places, also a lot of work in Australia. It just gives you an idea of just some of that diversity. And I think British chefs now, which is probably the single most positive thing for me, in the last 3 years, there seems to be a real sense of confidence and pride in British cooking. So the chefs in the 80s and 90s, generally food is way better now than it was in the 90s, way better. But there were some great restaurants in Britain and in London then, but they were all French. The cuisine was French, and now there's this sense of Britishness, and that we can take some pride in that. And obviously, quality of produce, but the whole thing avalanches, you know, because then the general public are much more aware of where their food comes from. Before the whole thing about sustainable seafood was something in Europe that Britain led. The notions of Spanish people that there was a problem with fish disappearing from the oceans to the general 5 years ago didn't exist. So there's been such massive changes. So I'm just hoping enough people get to sample some of what amazing stuff London has to offer. My mum was and is a really good cook, but I didn't know what an oyster looked like. I hadn't grown up with any of that stuff. And we used to go to Cornwall for our holidays. One year, lucky enough, we went to Provence, and my old man read about this 3 Michelin-starred restaurant called L'Ossa de Beaumanière, and we went there for dinner. Myself, my sister, my parents, they'd never been to a Michelin-starred restaurant before, let alone a 3-star. I certainly had never been to one. And I remember it so vividly. Had I grown up with lobster and oysters and caviar, etc., I don't think it would have had the same impact. But this is completely new to me. So I sat, beautiful terrace under the shade of the olive trees in this bauxite valley. And you hear the noise of the water, the fountain running in the background. There's a waiting staff with their feet crunching on gravel. This intoxicating smell of lavender filled the air. The noise of the crickets was almost drowning, and there was a sommelier with his big handlebar moustache pouring sauces into soufflés, carving legs of lamb at the table. The cheese trolley was the size of a chariot. And I'd fallen down some kind of rabbit hole into a wonderland. And that was it. I thought, oh my God, this is what I want to do. obviously smell plays a role. If we go somewhere, if you think about the most memorable meals or things you've ever eaten, I guarantee at the top of the tree there'll be somewhere the food's good, but it's been about the setting, the journey, the occasion, the company, all of this kind of stuff. The plate, we've got these shadow boxes with real sand, and that's edible sand. So it's different types of crystallized seaweed. We've got a little sustainable bonito fried. Then we've got tapioca, miso oil, and a little bit of cod liver oil in there. 3 types of seaweed. We've got hidiki, kombu, and codium. They're all cooked and preserved in different techniques. The codium in the end has the taste of the smell of rock pools. 3 types of fish here. We've got mackerel cured in coriander and chili. We've got yellowtail cured in rooibos tea, and we've got halibut, which is cured in kombu. And then we work with some foragers off the south coast, Cornwall and Devon, and they just go, that's a sea jelly bean, and it grows in the estuaries. So you get this wonderful burst of saline, sort of watery. In fact, there's samphire, there's sea porpier. Again, they just go and harvest whatever's on the estuaries at the time. And then there's a ponzu dressing, which is yuzu, white soy, dark side, tiny bit of miso. And then for the sea, we've got a mixture of seaweed and shiitake mushrooms, things that have real umami in them, and we froth that up. So the idea is you've got the waves lapping up against the shore, and then we serve that. So we serve that dish with this sound, which we record onto an iPod, and then stick it in a seashell. So you pop that in your ears and listen to the dish, and it's been a really powerful dish, actually. I also like, for me, I like the journey of development. So the idea that a dish, everything that I do has a reason for, shows itself in the dish. There's a reason for that, where that idea came from. It was not just, oh, let's see if I can make a table edible, or I can turn this into something else. So, for example, when there's a backstory, the historical element. So about 10, 12 years ago, I got fascinated in historical British cooking. And I realised that there's an unbelievable wealth of rich history in our cooking. And going back to Jacques Chirac's comment about the Brits and the French call us les roast beef. And I always thought it's because they took their mick out of our love for roast beef and Yorkshire pudding. But in fact, that nickname comes from the 1800s, where Britain was the leading experts in Europe on roasting meat over an open fire. The different styles of cooking, but the ethos is still the same. So I would say it doesn't matter if you're cooking if you're a 25-course tasting menu, a cup of coffee, baking a loaf of bread, making breakfast, the ethos is still the same. And I would say that there is an awful lot of great techniques and kit and information available to the chef now compared to there was, even 5 years ago. I still think there's still good and bad food. I still think you want to cook and you want to taste the food, and that's how you judge the quality. But the element of the senses can be really powerful. We've got we're launching at the end of the year a domestic sous vide system, and it's a brilliant piece of kit. It's taken about 2 years to get right, but I think that has the potential to have the biggest single change in domestic cooking since the microwave, but the microwave is convenience.
And how much will that cost, do you think, for
we're looking around about 300-ish,
okay.
But that's with the bath and the pump, and there's some, I can't say yet, but there's something else with the bath. It's really clever. It's got something else with the bath that allows you to do the whole complete system.